English 2322 British Literature. Hello, my name is Eric Lopez. I'm the discussion leader for this group's discussion board, which is discussion board 7, which is over Ben Jonson's poem, On My First Son. The other members of my group are Ethan Azam, Jane Cox, and Crystal Olivares. We are group 1. Getting to the questions, number 1 says, describe the dramatic situation. And this was pretty unanimous for my group. We all held that, our questions all answered that the dramatic situation is about the speaker losing his 7-year-old son, which is what he lost, and the whole poem is about his mourning for him and how he's coping with this. Number 2 asked us to describe what problem is raised in the first 2 lines and explain how the problem is resolved in the last 4 lines. This was actually interesting in my group because it was divided 2 and 2 on what our answers was. Me and Crystal actually held similar opinions about that the main problem, or like the sub-theme of the problem of his son dying, was that he held too much pride for his son, and that like this holding his son to such a high regard and then losing him was like a sin that he should not have committed, and it was bad for him in the end and for his son. I personally got this from line 2 stating, "My sin was too much to hope of thee, loved boy." And Crystal agrees with this, and she actually goes on to say because of him being too proud is why the son was taken away. And then we both said that it's resolved by as far as acceptance of the death. Now, Jane and Ethan in my group took a different path, and they're talking about how relating this to where he says like how he's like poetry, because in one of the statements he gives is, "Here doth lie Ben Jonson, my best piece of poetry," and he's saying that they're both saying that like the son was like the best thing ever created, and he's relating this to poetry as something that he's more familiar with, and Jane actually says he called his son his best piece of poetry just how much he loved him. So that was very interesting in my group. Number 3 asks us to, or ask the question, what kind of paradox is involved in that resolution, and how does it inform the theme? Now, what we got for this one is that the resolution, as stated in line 12, says, "As what he loves may never like too much." Now, obviously the theme of the poem is love and loss for his 12-year-old son, whom he loved very much, and is coping with this as is described through all the different questions given to us and the poem. Now, the paradox in this is he says what he loves may never like too much, which is confusing for us, because as you would see typically nowadays, that like you like something is like the way it progresses, and then you have to, after liking it, like liking is a prerequisite to loving it, and he's actually saying like you cannot like something of what you love. And what he's talking about is son, what he loves too much. That's why it's contradictory, because it's impossible to love something without first liking it. And I think it's really what he's trying to say here is that like loving is something you can't really it makes sense because loving is something you can't really control, like emotions for a son that you have. However, you shouldn't place too much emphasis on liking it, which is debatable, I guess, as if you think that's correct or not. But it's just the pain he's feeling is why he's saying this answer. This is what all my different discussion people got for this. Crystal actually goes on to say, when you admire something, you love it, and when you love something, you imagine the future with it, and when something like death comes along, you become heartbroken and feel that the most important thing that has ever happened to you is gone forever. This is also, she even goes on to say that it is a little odd because there is no way he can prevent his emotions of love to come up, which is exactly what I said about like loving something is almost uncontrollable by yourself, rather than like, which we think of more as like an emotion we can control. And that is my group summarization, video summarization for group 1 on the discussion board 7. Thank you.